We have a public hearing this evening regarding local law number 5, planning board composition going from a 7-man board to a 5-man board. And we'd like to hear any comments people have regarding this issue. And I guess I'll wait for comments.
Speak now or forever hold.
Yeah.
How about 6?
I like 6.
We're just bubbling with excitement tonight.
This is gonna be riveting.
Yeah. You may have to edit this first slide. And write that in the paper.
Silence prevailed.
That's right.
I just put there being no public comment.
We have to give it, what, till
7.
26 seconds.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hey guys, this is Isaac's 1-year anniversary of filming our meeting.
Is it really? Oh, yeah, Now, can you be on camera for that?
Someone want to grab it for a second? That's all right.
All right, at this time, we're going to close the public hearing.
I need a motion.
Can somebody make a move, the motion?
Second.
Okay, you got that? Got it. All right. And now we'll open our regular town board meeting. And our first order of business, we have a guest of the board. Tom, glad you made it.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Want me to come up there?
Wherever you like. wherever
We
you
can't
like.
hear you in the
Is it
front.
okay here?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to let you know that I've been legislator nominated member of the Sullivan County Economic Planning Plan Steering Committee. Probably because I used to work for the United Nations evaluating development projects in Latin America. This steering committee is composed of about 20 members or so, representing elected officials, Scott Samuelson, a couple of town supervisors, all of the major chairs and chief executive officers of the business organizations in the county, IDA, Sullivan County Partnership, the Chamber of Commerce, the Jeff Bank, Bethel Woods, and so forth. Educational institutions, the president of the community college and the executive director of the cooperative extension. It's a solid representative group and does represent this end of the county as well. Jeff Stafford, for example, is on it. So far, we've had 2 meetings. And it's become pretty clear that the work done in the past 2 years by outside consultants from New Jersey was inadequate, and so we decided pretty much to redo the drafts they had prepared. And we broke up into working groups to do that. There are 4 of them, one on agriculture, one on tourism, one on healthcare, one on cost-cutting issues such as infrastructure. And given the importance of agriculture to our local economy and our way of life, I joined that group. The other members of that group are Dick Reisling from Apple Pond Farms, George Kinney from the Jeff Bank, and Greg Sander from the Cooperative Extension. So I just came to ask you for ideas and suggestions. I really would appreciate any ideas, any thoughts that you might have. Tess has my contact information, so you can, give her your contacts, or you can get my contact from her. So that's essentially it. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
You're gonna make recommendations to the county legislature?
We are actually preparing the final economic development plan, yes. And I'm essentially focused on, I'll be working on the agricultural part of it. And I'm looking to see in what ways we can promote agriculture, not only to grow and sustain it, because I think it's so critical to what we are about, but also to link it to the other aspects like tourism. Well, all the issues are involved. Education, we need to train people. We need to have more emphasis on making jobs in agriculture. It's not, all of this has been done before. It's not rocket science, but it's a challenge, and I think the important thing is to focus on the right things. Yeah.
Have you all accessed the farmland preservation plans for the
Oh,
various?
absolutely.
Okay, so you're going to be
I'll
referring to
definitely be
those?
looking at that, yes.
I have that too.
Yes, I know, that's certainly part of it, yes.
Okay, because there was a lot of recommendations in there.
Oh, I
that
know,
was done.
yes, certainly. But, please, if you know anybody that has any ideas or thoughts, please, contact Tess.
I'm kinda glad that the group recognizes the error of hiring another consultant. It seems like every year we hire another consultant, anywhere from $55,000 to $155,000, and
Yeah.
it just seems, just year in, year out, we get it, it's just,
Yes.
and it goes nowhere.
Yeah,
I think-
I
I
looked
think-
at this stuff, and it's boilerplate stuff. I
And
mean,
it's just, and who knows
anybody
better
could have done
than our
this.
own community?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Very
we're
good.
redoing it, what it comes down
Very
to,
good.
yeah.
Has anybody ever compiled an index of businesses that are already here, industries, shops?
Farmland preservation and study did all of that.
I mean, something like your business,
Yes,
and how they can interrelate somehow, It's, I know some that are closing their doors and moving out.
yeah, well, the planning department does have some of that information, and, yeah.
I think Liz has a question too.
Are you gonna be working with, the food hub with Andrea Reynosa and all of that?
That is a good example of what I'm talking about, because it links, there's a whole, agriculture is changing, and we definitely need to find ways to promote traditional agriculture, but we also need to be aware of the fact that, there's a lot of things going on that do preserve agriculture. There's more direct connections from producers to consumers. There's more emphasis on value-added endeavors, like not just producing milk, but using milk to create cheese, and or even stuff like making fibers from sheep and alpaca and producing goods, crafts. So you need to find new ways of promoting agriculture. And the Food Hub is a very good example, because the whole food to plate movement is very big now. People in the city are very interested in, local, organic foods that are within the metropolitan area that they can trust. It can also attract tourism. It can train people in the food processing industry. It has a lot of potential, and that's the kind of thing that we're looking for.
Well, I had a reason for asking that, because I think that one of the laws of unintended consequences is that on Sundays, for instance, and other days in other hamlets, villages, if the hub comes to be, which I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and Andrea did so much work on it, is that means on Sundays, if it goes through, we're gonna have less traffic in Calicoon, presumably, because we won't have the farmer's market. So that's just something in terms of Calicoon that we need to, our Silver Feather hamlet needs to think about. And then the other thing was, I'm a fiber person. I create things with fiber. And one of the things that has been a serious frustration to me, I started Cottage Works, so that people who are producing fiber products within our area, whether it's Damascus or here, alpaca fibers, whatever that is, there's no outlet. So when I started Cottage Works and I wanted local makers to be able to access locally produced fibers, it just wasn't happening. And that's something that we've got huge numbers of fiber artists around here, and they can't buy locally produced fibers unless you go to if you go up to West Gillingham, you might be able to get some stuff, but just that kind of thing.
Do you know Lisa Rose?
She's local here, yeah.
She's been doing that. She has a little.
But in
company
terms of
that does
outlets, like for instance, there was the Four Corners Knitting Shop in Narrowsburg, and all of their products came from elsewhere. Not because Wendy Merritt wanted it that way, but because there was no way to coordinate getting the stuff from the farmers and the producers and the makers into the shops. It was almost as if there had to be some kind of built-in structure for helping to make that happen. So I'm sure you guys are going to be thinking that. It's something near and dear to my heart.
Lisa is a neighbor, so I suggest call her up, because I think she's doing exactly what you're talking about.
What kind of fiber products are you talking about?
Well, this
Well, the first word
involves-
that comes to mind is hemp. You can use hemp for a lot of things. I was making river sandals with it, like hemp rope, and you knit or you crochet river sandals. And I was outletting them from my website, and people were buying them in California, but I wanted them in the stores here. And at the time I was living in Wurtsboro, so people would buy them off the shelf in Wurtsboro, but it was just, little bit at a time, little bit at a time. It would be really wonderful if, for instance, the tree that opened on Lower Main in Calicoon had, all of this locally produced stuff, which in some of it is just fabulously beautiful. Marcia
Finding a
Neal.
market for it?
Hmm?
You finding a market for it?
There's absolutely a market for buying homemade, sweaters, cable knit sweaters that are made by somebody right here in Calicoon, but the
Is
big.
it something the average person can afford? Because my neighbor is in the textile business, and he wanted to start a mill here many years ago. Sullivan County would have none of it, and he wound up putting the plant together down in Georgia. Well,
that's a shame. That's
with
really a shame.
with the importation and the cost of doing business, even in Georgia, where he put the plant up for 1/3 of what he would have done here. There's very few textile mills in the country anymore. It's all in Mexico and overseas in China.
Well, that's textiles more than just fiber, but it's certainly the point is a good one. My concern was that when I wanted to go buy fiber, when I wanted to go buy yarn, homemade, like the Gillinghams, with make skeins, and it comes it's locally produced, it's dyed locally at the farm. When I would bring it home, my whole house would smell of lavender because it was homegrown organic lavender that it was bathing in. There's no mechanism right now for getting a lot of that stuff into our local stores, and some of it is the price. But some of it is just, if you're at home making fibers, 18 hours a day, how much time do you have to actually do the marketing for it? So, what Tom's talking about in the hub, and it doesn't have to be just a food hub. There are all kinds of
But
agricultural
let me
products.
interject here. This is a good discussion because it's an example of both the challenges and the opportunities.
Right.
Because what you're talking about, Al, is more of the traditional method of manufacturing. And what we're looking at is the new kind of niche markets, much smaller, producing, and it is your point is a good one, who can afford it. It turns out that doing this kind of stuff is, this is done, it's local crafts, it's done by a local individual who spends many, many hours, and if they really charged, a going rate of labor, they'd have to charge hundreds of dollars for a sweater or something, and who's going to buy it? Well, people with money will buy it. It's not an industrial model, but we're looking at ways to make it more viable. We do have, we have the proximity to New York City, and we have people that are interested in these kind of goods. So we're looking for ways to, to promote these kind of activities, and that's just one example. It is a challenge, but we have to try to find ways to do this.
I shipped 3 scarves, $30 each, to California. Because you're right, I can't afford to buy that. I've got an Afghan at home that I've got enough time into it. It's probably $3,000 Afghan. I'm going to get maybe 100. Your point is well taken, but we're also connected to the entire world. And there's no reason why Sullivan County can't be like, the fiber capital of the Northeast. There's no reason. We've got the sheep, we've got the alpacas, we've got the makers, we've got it. We just have to find a way to
The
coordinate it.
alpaca farms were trying to start a mill, and I think it's ending up in Pennsylvania.
No,
However, there is gonna be an Alpaca Fest at Bethel Woods Mother's Day weekend 2014.
Every day.
now some of the fibers that you're talking about, can they be grown in this area with
Absolutely.
this
You
climate
can
and these
grow
soil
hemp,
conditions?
You can grow hemp here, we've got alpaca,
Sheep
we've got,
also,
yeah,
not just
absolutely.
alpaca.
Apple Pond Farm is putting together, they're tanning stuff, they're putting together, they make beautiful, like moccasins and, and with the sheep wool, it's all here. We just have to find a way to coordinate the marketing and the distribution and get it the heck out there, because we've got it. We've got it.
I think that, the important thing is we can't, I don't think we can compete if we're talking about big spurts of growth, industrial models. But if we can find ways to grow what we have in a slow but steady way, I think this is better for us in the long run. It's not easy. It is difficult.
Look what Foxfire did for Appalachia. We got it.
Something you can put a co-op together with?
I don't know, that's a good point.
Wendy and I were not able to do
I'm
that.
not familiar with the details of this.
We were not able to do that. And Wendy Merritt, the whole thing was that Wendy Merritt, when she had the store on Main Street in Narrowsburg, went to fiber producers and makers and creators and said, I'm gonna open up a part of my shop. In fact, she was going to expand the shop from the corner where she was and make it bigger. And she just couldn't, one person couldn't generate, I think, the faith. I think in many ways we've lost our faith here. And it's hard to believe that we can actually do something. So if you're worrying about taking care of your kids and you're worrying about doing this and worrying about doing that and how you pay the bills, at what point do you take enough time in a week to begin coordinating, how do I expand this? How do I expand that?
I like your question a lot. The local farmers, the dairy farmers who are left, is it possible? I know that they don't trust co-ops anymore, but if it was just a local co-op, would our local farmers do something with their milk together that could get around the way the pricing is done local?
Like an old grains union.
As long as they're not named Dairy League.
The problem with dairies is the government fixes the price.
Well,
Well, they don't fix the price of their expenses.
No,
So,
Alan's right.
Fertilizer
The dairy industry
is
a
doubled
very
and
difficult
tripled,
thing to deal
price
with
of
because
seeds is
federal-
outrageous, and plus they got a perishable product. Sits around for 2 or 3 days, you dump it. It's not something you can hold on to like you can with yours. So the farmer is really backed up in a corner, and
There's
how
no
many, what,
processing
I bet there isn't
There's no way
20 farms left in Sullivan County anymore.
value on Pulaski.
Yeah, they try, some of that was done in New England, I believe, and, but it's
Well, look how hard Mary Tonjes, has had to work, and that was a wonderful idea, that I want to say ambulatory, that mobile.
The cheesemobile.
Right, what a wonderful thing, and I don't know of anybody else who did it, but they started the Cheese Cave, I mean, it was a fabulous thing, but how many Mary Tonjeses are there in the
Well,
universe?
that's the whole
Well,
thing.
that's-
In the farmland preservation study that was done a couple of
Wanna
years
speak
back,
louder, Virginia?
a lot of the farmers failed to attend, number one. There was a lot of apathy. And when there was a suggestion made by John Gorzinski that there was a larger market available to them if they wanted to start growing produce rather than just doing dairy, they all were very reluctant in that they said they didn't know how to do anything but dairy. And we also have an aging farmer population. So there's a lot of problems in that. We have a lot of acreage that's available, and we have enough climate, and we have access to the metropolitan area, tri-state area for that matter. And let's not forget local. If you have it that it's affordable, I would be very happy to be supporting local endeavors. However, I don't go to the farmer's market because I don't feel it's affordable.
I can't afford it. It's sad, it's really
It
sad.
appears to be that one of the functions really that the government should really be involved in is the marketing of this,
Yes.
or act as a catalyst
Yes.
for what is being offered here, and let them go out and find where this could go.
Absolutely.
And put those two
I
things
agree,
together.
yeah.
If we could do that, that in itself would be a victory.
Yes, marketing is very key.
That's right.
And that's
And the makers
one
can
of the
stay
things
home
that
and
we're
make.
looking at is branding,
Yeah.
trying to, get more branding for the, Sullivan or Catskill, farmers, and so that people in the city would be more interested in products from this area. Yeah, marketing it's tricky and it's expensive, but you're right, it's very key.
I took just an example of what happened down in Orange County, not in the agricultural area, but with the infrastructure that they have with 84 and the thruway and the airport and all this stuff. The government set up this business type of situation to help other businesses, developers coming in to put in these manufacturing plants or these where they could ship them right out. And their job was they shopped all over the country, all over the world to find out who wants to come here to do this. And now this is kind of like in the reverse. We want to take it out and put it out the other end. But this is really where I think the emphasis should be by the government. I think if we can do that type of thing, it would be a good step in the right direction. I'm one of the old guys around here. And I remember every road in the Beechwoods was dirt road. And everybody had dairy farm all over. I mean, it was just like a natural thing. There were dairy, well, you folks know, dairy farms all over the place. And it was just a wonderful time. But when the government took over pricing the milk, it made a market that wasn't real. They controlled it. The farmer could make a living. And it was easier to go in town to take a job rather than come home and milk 28 cows or whatever it was. And that's what happened over the period of time. I don't know how many we have left. And what scares me about that, huh?
23.
23. What scares me about that as we drive around the beautiful area we live in, you look out across the fields. Who does those fields? The dairy farmer. He makes hay.
Yeah.
And if he's not going to be here to make hay in a decade, you will have nothing but trees and brush and junk. I'm old enough to remember some of those that have disappeared that I used to woodchuck hunt as a little kid in these places. And they're nothing but woods now. It's gone. It's gone. So I want to bless you in your endeavor because I think this is necessary. And if it's done the right way, it should help. Little cottage things like that. So I encourage you to don't give up. Keep going.
Oh, I'm fighting for it because.
So if anybody has any other suggestions, I think Tom would be receptive to receive them.
Oh,
Is there a
yes,
deadline?
please. Excuse me?
Is there a deadline?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a very short time frame. We're supposed to put this thing together by the end of September.
Oh, hurrah.
So, yeah, well, it may not be realistic, but that's the deadline, yes.
Could I ask a question?
It's been happening for 2 years, unfortunately. A lot of it was wasted, you know.
Who on earth set the deadline for you?
I guess it was determined by grants, because they got a state and federal grant.
Because they putzed with the planning department, that's why.
Could I ask a question in regard to what Virginia mentioned about the aging farmers? Isn't it true that there's a growing number of younger people, not necessarily located here right now, that are interested in doing vegetable farming and stuff like that, but they don't have access to the land?
Exactly.
And wouldn't there be a possibility of the older farmers leasing or renting?
Well, that was one of the things that was brought up during
In
the
the ag
Land
plan?
Preservation, trying to make that connection between those people who may want to lease their property and those who wish to lease it.
Yeah, that's
Which
But
is
that
what Hal's
never-
talking about,
that's
bringing
never-
people here to
Yeah,
do.
that's like
Exactly.
Daryl's
Yeah.
idea of turning it around and getting people
Yes.
to come in here, and with the added population, you know, if it, there were,
The
yeah.
trouble with,
you-
And
what
there's
you're
also-
saying, Steve, is that vegetables and produce is very, very labor intensive.
Yeah.
Try and find somebody to go out there and hoe weeds.
Go on over to Willow West.
But there's a whole, there's a group of young people coming along
That's right.
who are, you know, several generations from farming background, who basically have discovered that they don't have any future, there are no jobs, and they're trying to find a way to get back into agriculture, doing exactly this kind of thing,
That's right.
you know. And it's hopeful. I think we got some possibilities. It's gonna be small scale, and it has to be nurtured, and you have to find the connections between the consumer and the producer. But I think that's a better future for us, because I think the old ways, you know,
I mean, even
Is
with
your
the
group gonna
machinery
stay
today-
together afterward?
I don't think so. I don't, you know.
Yeah, I think that I think this is fantastic, what Tom is doing. I think the fact that Tom is a town resident and is involved in this larger effort is terrific, and I think I certainly agree with Ed that it's good there wasn't dumping more money on a consultant, that it's done locally, because there have been lots of efforts over the last 2 or 3 years by many people, many groups, you know, about agriculture. And somehow grabbing all of the information, it's been happening for several years now.
Yeah.
People looking at possible solutions, but kind of aggregating it.
Yes.
I mean, I stumbled upon a Calicoon honey maker in the city farmers market. And there's discussions at one of the meetings I've been to over the last couple of years about having some system where, you know, the effort to get the market to the city, where a farmer's market, they will pay the money that the farmers want for it in the city, but getting it there is a cost. But some system where, you know, someone kind of groups farmers together and helps them transport, you know, their booths, their produce, kind of to get, like, in a system, so they're not individually driving their trucks in or whatever has to happen, is a cool idea. You know,
Well,
it's
that's
an
what Tonduses
available.
were doing. Tonduses were taking their cheese, their yogurt, down to the city market, down to the, which one, the big one? Anyway, you know, and then here on Sundays,
They're at the
it's,
Essex Street Market.
it's insanity, you know, it's like, that's 36 hours a day, 7, 8, 10 days a week that these people are working.
Is it
It's
millions
killer.
of dollars to set up a milk producing plant? It costs, talking millions?
A lot of money.
Yeah, but there's a
The
discussion.
local farmers have tried to organize their own co-op in the area. But with so many farmers leaving the industry, it's very difficult to get, you know, a group of farmers together and try to negotiate funding for this type of thing. It's very costly.
And you take,
Well, most towns don't even have a farm.
Right.
you know, you take.
Town of Delaware and the town of Calhoun have the preponderance of dairy farms left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back in the day Harold and I grew up on, I mean, everybody on our road farm, Tonjes is the only one left, the only one left. And we had a creamery in Calhoun, we had a creamery in Jeff,
Yeah.
we had a creamery in Briscoe.
And a creamery right across the river in Pennsylvania. over
Yeah, I mean, the creameries were all over, they used to ship by rail out of here.
Yep.
They're all gone.
Somebody mentioned,
Couldn't, something to bring back one of them?
Train.
somebody mentioned honey.
25
honey
years.
makers. There are several honey makers, and they produce their product, and they put it in their shops or what have you, and they wait for the city people to come to them. You know, how fantastic it would be if there were a market that they could take their produce to and you know, market it elsewhere, rather than to wait for them to come to them.
Marketing is very key.
Very
That's the key to it.
Yeah.
And
I
I
just wanted
think
to make a quick mention of that. You know, there are many markets, green markets in the city. And if there could be an aggregate of a number of different businesses that would want to partake in just driving down, you know, and visiting, and they're all different days of the week in the city. So you could go down to Wall Street, you could have like a market every single day, and it could be a rotating kind of thing for people to go down to the city and partake in each market during the week. Because there's at least one market going on every single day of the week in New York City. And it could be a rotating kind of thing, getting together a number of people that would be interested, maybe having one truck with a few people that would be marketing for each individual farmer, you know, and but one truck rather than have, you know, everybody's got to take their own truck nowadays. It's like ridiculously expensive, and it's not, you know, effective at all. But people could set up like 5, 6 vendors in one truck in one area Monday, and Tuesday would be somebody else's turn to drive down, and thereby defraying all the, you know, the costs of transportation, because that's the biggest cost for them. But it would just be a matter of like getting together a few people to man each of their individual booths. But that would be great, you know, to get together with the green market and maybe work out a deal where their booths, you know, could be at a reduced rate because there's 5 marketers coming from a particular area. So maybe there could be a reduced rate for them. You know,
I
that
think our
kind of
farmers
thing.
want to stay home and work on their farms and have people come here and buy it.
Well, they have little choice but to stay home and work on their farms because they have to milk between 30 and 50 cows twice a day without fail. So they have
I just want to say I don't.
precious little.
Yeah. I don't think there's a farmer in the room, and we've got them all their problems solved. I think we should move on to some town business. Okay, thank you, I appreciate
Could
the
I
comments.
just end with a kind of joke, because we've been talking about agriculture. I have a carload of summer squash. I know everybody tries to get rid of it, but in case anybody would like some, see me after the meeting. An easy recipe, just slice it thin and cook it with margarine and onions and garlic, and if you like a little more spicy with some Chinese stir-fry sauce. So see me after the meeting if you want some.
Does anybody have any ripe tomatoes?
Huh?
Nobody has ripe tomatoes.
Yeah, I'm being offered
Not this
more,
year.
okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody's, there are no ripe tomatoes to be had anywhere in Sullivan County.
No, the weather's been.
It's always a race between the tomatoes and the frost.
All right, moving right along now. Can I, somebody has to accept the minutes?
I'll
from
make
last
a
month?
motion.
Wait a minute,
Second.
Tess isn't here, hold on.
Second.
Well, she has it all on,
What, second, where'd you second?
accepting the minutes.
Who first is it?
Harold made the motion.
Harold
and I
made the motion.
seconded it.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Tess, you made it back for your,
For my
you're up.
report, I
Yeah.
think it's pretty quick. July receipts total $4,354.40 with $4268.90 turned over to the supervisor. And of that, $3771.40 is building fees. Correspondence, the day after the last board meeting, we received a letter from the county telling us they're closing the bridge by Robish Hill Road, so in case anybody doesn't know that. That road is, the bridge is closed through November 22nd, possibly longer. Time Warner Cable is transitioning from analog and digital to digital only. I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but it's now necessary to have digital equipment or a fairly modern TV in order to view the public, educational, and government access channels. So you can contact Time Warner Cable prior to September 23rd in order to get a free adapter. If you wait till after that, it's going to cost you 99 cents a month. And I think they're still fighting with Channel 2, so we don't have that. Hortonville Fire Department sent a letter, which I would like to read. Dear council members, on behalf of the annual Field Day and Parade Committee and the officers and members of the Hortonville Volunteer Fire Company, I'm writing to request permission and approval from the board to close Hortonville Main Street between Beechwoods Road and North Horton Avenue between the hours of 9:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock on Saturday, August 24th, 2013. This will minimize the amount of public parking on this section of Main Street and allow enough space for the parking of visiting fire apparatus prior to and following our annual street parade. Also, please be aware that we'll be using the 2nd Street right-of-way for access to our fireman's field. Thank you for your consideration of this request and look forward to a favorable response. Yours truly, William S. Buckminster, Jr.
Can we act on that now?
We can act on it. Are you done with your report?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to make
Thank
a
you, Des.
motion that we allow them to.
I'll
Okay,
second that.
moved by John,
Okay,
second,
okay.
Al. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's it for me.
Okay. I don't see our superintendent of highways, Bill's not here. I do have one thing. And I don't know if anybody's looked at this, I'll pass it around. It's a shared service agreement. Apparently, once in a while, towns share, I shouldn't say, let me start over again. Towns share the CHIPS program, but once in a while, they get into a little beef amongst themselves, and one town sent another town a bill for $2,500. So what the Highway Superintendents Association has recommended is that they enter into this shared service agreement, which I've looked over, I've showed it to Kenny, seems okay, and I just want to make that. Other than that, I have nothing else regarding the Highway Department.
Need a
And if
motion?
somebody doesn't sign it,
Then what?
then nobody gets any cooperative help during their CHIPS program. That
I
sounds
mean,
reasonable.
it's, if you look at any of those projects, I mean, I'm trying to, Calhoun, Coshecton, Fremont, Delaware are always together, you know?
Yeah, we're-
And often Bethel, I see Thompson over here once in a
In
while.
Lumberland too.
So they all work together, and this is just an effort to circumvent future problems.
So what
I
did
don't-
the town say who received the bill?
Say again?
What did the town that received the bill say?
Well, we don't want to receive one of those bills, and that's why we're recommending this
You know, it's always worked like mutual aid with a fire company.
Right.
If Hortonville has a fire and Jeff and North Branch come there, nobody sends a bill for the manpower and the trucks that were there. It's a mutual thing, and the same thing has worked among the towns, and it's worked very well. I've seen them in action. They do a wonderful cooperative job until somebody here had a pissing match, and that's about what it amounts to.
Do you want to spell that, Al? Moving on.
Well, you know, so-
Howard, you're up.
Okay, well, the building is progressing nicely. We have currently 4 new homes under construction. Before the next meeting, there'll be another home that I'll be issuing a permit for. And a lot of renovation work, actually, so it's quite busy, as you can tell by the receipts that Tess talked about. Another thing which I know you are aware of, Ed, was the class I took last Thursday, which I found very informative. It's a 3-part class, has to do with what is the most effective way to deal with stream reparation after flooding. And there's some new ideas about it, using root balls of trees to stabilize banks, but it's a very specific method. It was mostly a lecture, slideshow, but in the near future, there's going to be a project about a mile up the road, and they're going to demonstrate to the local contractors who might be hired after a flood to go in and fix streams how to do this. And then there'll be one more class afterwards, which I'm looking forward to. I mean, it was very interesting, and having been through doing what they said was completely wrong in the town of Callicoon in '06 to try to save people's homes. In terms of the stream, they said it was wrong, but not trying to save people's homes. So wrong. Hopefully this method works. The people who developed it are from Delaware County, and they claim or said that New York State is now adopting this program statewide. They feel that it really will help stream stabilization. So we'll be seeing it in action, and one more class before the next meeting, I'm sure.
A little bit, I attended it also, it was very interesting.
And ironically, at the end of the meeting, we couldn't leave the building last Thursday because it was raining so hard. And if it kept up, there would have been a flood.
When is this demonstration?
This week, I believe Soil and Water will be getting their permit to do the work from the DEC. Then they're going to put it out for bids from contractors to do the work, because they've gotten a grant.
But the demonstration, when is that going to be when?
Well, it'll be as soon as they get their bids out and people respond, because they need to do it in September. They have to be out of the stream by the end of September. So it will be soon.
It was an interesting, you would think that after a flood that, if you put a bulldozer and made the stream deeper and bigger to hold more, that would help solve the problems. It turns out that's not the case. They've engineered it, and that's really not what works. So these guys from Delaware County can prove it. So it was very interesting.
And the people who, and I've heard it over many years now, that say, oh yeah, back, we used to put the bulldozers in the stream and clean it out, use the gravel for the roads. And they showed a graph of annual average rainfall for New York State. And they went back 100 years, and the average, and back in the early 60s through early 70s, we were so far below the average in rainfall that they were able to do that to the streams without any negative effects, because there was no major rainfalls. But now we are way above the average with our rainfall amounts. So doing what they used to do when there was no rain just doesn't work. So it was a good class, and hoping the next one will be as informative.
Where was this?
And as, you know, I'm like it or not, I'm also the floodplain administrator. That's part of being a code enforcement officer. FEMA says we are floodplain administrators, and they designate us, and I have to know their rules as well. And this, you know, might help some of the flooding issues. So that's partly why I took it, you know, as the one in charge of the floodplains in town.
Where was this course?
We held it at the fire, it was held at the firehouse here,
Oh,
and that's where the follow-up after the
Okay.
project will be here.
I wish I'd known that. I didn't know myself.
Well, you can probably go to the,
Yeah,
they're
go to the
figuring
next one.
a
Go to
week,
administration,
it'll
go to
probably
the next
take a
class.
week
Okay.
of work that, and you don't have to stay for, there'll be a lot of repetitive work. And then they will hold another class, and I'm sure you can get in touch with Brian Brustman, and
Yep, no, Brian will.
he'll, I'm sure he'll let you in.
Next on our agenda is the assessor's report. Now Renee's not here. She gave me a report, and there's and I'm just going to go over the highlights. She first alludes to the application for a tag grant, which we won't know until September 10th. That's regarding management of archives and records that we applied for. There's new legislation require homeowners receiving basic star exemptions to register with the State of New York Tax Department in order to receive these exemptions. It's a change, and it's kind of important to a lot of people in our town. So what we're doing is the next meeting, which is our September meeting, after our business is conducted, what is his name?
John Wolfham.
John Wolfham. Now, some of you may remember John. He was here twice to talk about our reassessment program that we had. He had a couple of workshops here already, and I think he plans more. But he's here to give us, explain these changes, and I think that'll be very informative. You might want to mention that, because it's going to affect a lot of people, you know. And then finally, Renee came to me a couple of weeks ago, and she put together a little report about the current income limits for senior citizens, you know, the aged exemptions. And they haven't been changed since '98. Is that true? Am I
Yeah.
95 or 98?
Goes back a long time.
Goes back a long way.
Time for the revow.
Well, it's time, it's probably time we revisited that.
Yep.
Now, I had some questions, and I did speak with Al about, I actually spoke with several of you about this, in passing. And both you and Al and myself, we had the same question, and that is, what effect will it have on our role?
Yeah.
So Renee is working on that, and she's gonna put something together, and you'll hear more about that in the future, so.
Yep.
Anything else, Virginia, that,
No,
You wanna-
not really. Just to recap a little bit of that, the aged exemption is for those people who are 65 and older who have an income that is below a certain amount, that's not even a livable income. And so the point of this is to raise that to a standard that's more relevant to today's costs.
What is it now?
23?
Right down here.
But it's interesting that Sullivan West School District, their
Oh.
exemption limit is higher. Very few municipalities have addressed this at all, you know. Obviously, Sullivan West hasn't even been around since '98, so, but they probably addressed it when they formed when they merged, you know. Okay, next, grants coordinator, Kara's not here. I wanted to mention a couple things. We applied for a grant for the railroad crossing in town. It was a matched grant with the state, and Kara put a full court press on. She did a great job. I want to thank her public. I wish she was here. She put many hours into it last week, and the deadline was Monday, and she got it done. We're fortunate to have Kara does a great job. And we're very fortunate now. And while I'm talking about that, I just want to mention that she also did a lot of work planning for the recent Renaissance, and she should get some accolades because she's done a great job there too, as everybody should. But we'll talk about, probably you'll want to talk about that when you give your park.
Solar father.
Yeah, but when you do your park committee report, of course, I was told that you were going to give one.
I am.
Okay. Yeah, but Kara really does a great job. I wish she was here. She deserves our thanks.
No, everyone knows that we won the
Solar
10,000,
father.
and then a 2,500 planning grant, and then 1,000 for showing of flowers.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, we were gonna talk about that, yeah, okay, and that'll be, she's up almost next, just a couple of.
I'm gonna burst line.
She is open next, actually, you were up next, so go ahead.
$13,500. I mean, Michael Chinicki, Kathy Langley, everybody. I mean, Kara, it was just, you know, the Calhoun Business Association, the Calhoun Creek Park Association. One of the things, the email that we got from Kathy today, which clarified, because the Sullivan Renaissance, evidently the information that they had put out initially gave the 2 extra grants, the planning money, the $3,500 to Livingston Manor. So last night we were still trying to figure out what had happened, but Kathy, you know, updated us today and said that we got that as well. So it's just huge and wonderful news.
One was for the flowers, right, it was $1,000 for flowers.
Right, and then for the planning.
$2,500 for planning.
Right. As to the park, it's one of the things that Kathy said in the email today, which all of us who are devoted to the park know is true. And certainly Ginny can speak to this better than I. She's been with it a lot longer than I have. Is one of the things that we want to do is, because the Renaissance Committee was so impressed with us having an open space, an open community space, they really liked that. And they like that it just keeps growing, it keeps getting bigger, it keeps involving more people. We're talking now, and the problem is we're all aging. We're all aging. I'm the baby, I think. Maybe Michael's the baby. Maybe Ginny's the baby. But we need more volunteers. And so we're struggling to think of ways that we can get more people in, not just during the summer, not just on the Sundays, not just for the concerts. So Linda Bastian came up with a wonderful idea of putting together around town hex signs, like the old Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs, and, you know, given our old Dutch heritage, having maybe kids involved with that, and doing, it's very much in the infant stage of thought. But, you know, and that would be something that people would come and see. Maybe we could get some of the businesses to allow us to do it. I thought at first when she was talking about it, she was talking about the old barn signs that the farmers would get paid to put advertising on their barns. I like that idea too. But anything that we can think of to bring new people into the park, new people with new ideas, maybe have a harvest festival. I was even thinking maybe like a stone soup festival. Robin at the Wine Merchant had talked about that a couple of times. I think that'd be wonderful, a community day, you know, and maybe have, you know, some young people doing spoken word, some other people doing, you know, open mic, maybe just have a picnic down there. The pumpkin patch is going great guns, involve the kids more, but get more and more people, broaden the reach a little bit. So that's kind of what we're thinking about, but as you know, there's only 5 of us. Dottie's on the library board now. We're all going in 17 different directions. So anybody who can step up and help with the park, You're more than welcome. Yes, Virginia, we'd love to have you.
I donate my plants. Have you reached out to the school for community service projects with students?
With the PIG program, the participation in government thing, yeah, we just
Anything.
all of a sudden realized how old we are and how tired we are, and we really need to. We started this season with, I think, 50 people on our Facebook page. I have that up to almost 170, and I'm posting there all the time. I've got the website going. We're getting some good press now, like with the River Reporter. One of the things that we're going to be talking to the Democrat about is that now that we have a silver feather in Calico, that we want to do a retrospective of the park. Because we want people to understand what it was, what it is now, and what it could be again if we lose it. And if we don't get volunteers, and if we don't get new ideas. So, I mean, anything that can be done to pull out the old photos of what it looked like before the park did it, that would be great. And maybe do that before Labor Day so that we get the city people to understand that this is a resource that could disappear if we can't get people to really do it. We can't. So there was that. The only other bad thing that I have to say is, and this wasn't bad because we handled it, but a woman who was slightly inebriated was dancing to beat the band, and she slid on the grass because this last Saturday it got cold so fast. The dew was real. It just came in real fast, and so I tended her. I do believe that she broke her leg. I mean, I could feel the break. I didn't do an X-ray, obviously.
Good to see you. We're doing a CAT scan.
But I assured myself and the witnesses that she was inebriated, that she did have osteoporosis, and this was not our liability. And so we're clean and clear and cool on that.
I'm another witness.
Yeah.
Did you report it to your insurance carrier?
No.
You should, absolutely.
should.
We have
Absolutely,
to?
always.
Okay.
First thing you do.
Just
Okay.
it's called a negative report, but you just want to let them know it's.
Okay, all right, so I'll talk to Kathy.
Because
All
if
right,
somebody
good.
ever contacts them, it shouldn't be a surprise to them. They should have our side of the story.
No, I'm really glad you told me that, because it happened Saturday night, and then Kathy obviously was really involved with everything that's going on with the silver feather. So, yeah, I'll give her a ring tomorrow and make sure that
Get
we're
some statements from your witnesses too.
Okay, Harold?
Here we go, river.
Ooh, technical.
Lots of water.
River. They went and changed the chart. It used to be that the long-term median was a dark line, but for some reason, they made it a lighter gray line. And that's this one that's going this way. And if you can see the red right here, that's where we are. We're above the long-term median. That means we have more water than has been seen. By the way, they just expanded, so this long-term median encompasses all the way back to 1967, all the way through. So that's a long term. So we have a lot of water. It isn't, where's the figures here? Cannonsville was 86.1, Pacton is 91.2. Those are the two that affected our area of this river here. Neversink on the other side was 86.5. So there seems to be enough water in the river right now. In the last UDC meeting, which was the first, they had a very interesting presentation that took place at the beginning of the meeting. There's one fellow by the name of Jerry Moeller, who is the Delaware River Coordinator for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He gave a talk on the health of the Delaware River fisheries, and it was kind of interesting. One of the first things he did was show a slide of the Atlantic sturgeon. And you wonder, what, a sturgeon? Well, you know why here? Well, he said that the Delaware River was once king of the sturgeon rivers in this country. But now it would be very hard pressed to find any spawning adults. He referred to the Delaware River as a river of many faces, as it starts in its headwaters in relatively pristine conditions and goes down to heavy industrialized uses. It's Philadelphia, Trenton, down the lower end, where all the stuff is down there. He said it is important to maintain good water quality in the bay so that the migratory fish that are coming in can get through the water and make their way up the river. He spoke of an electro-fishing survey of the American shad that has been conducted for the last 5 years with funding from the National Park Service. And the testing is taken in Sparrowbush, Narrowsburg, and Buckingham pools of the Delaware River. If you don't know where Buckingham is, that's up on the other end. Buckingham is a township in Pennsylvania, on the Pennsylvania side, heading up towards Hancock. So they've been doing that. He said it's very hard to determine what the actual population size of any type of fish in the Delaware is. So they must rely on trends to determine the status of the populations. Shad are still showing an uptick in their numbers in the Delaware as being monitored by the Delaware River Basin Fish and Wildlife Management Corporation. Moeller reported that the upper Delaware is considered one of the best wild trout fishing rivers in our country. There are over 75 miles of trout fishing on the upper Delaware River system. The main stem generally has a large ratio of rainbow to brown. The reverse is true for the streams and branches like we have out here. Fish 15 to 18 are commonly taken with flies. Fish over 20 inches or larger are often caught during favorable conditions. Both east and west branches are stocked by the DEC, mostly brown trout, but there is a significant wild reproduction. Moeller said that walleye, smallmouth bass are both popular catches for anglers on the Delaware River. Neither species, he's talking about the trout, is native to the Delaware. I don't know, what do you want to call them? An invasive species now or what? Yeah. People still like the fish. Right, they're not native. He noted that the smallmouth bass population has held its own in recent years. This is interesting, another introduced species is the muskellunge. I don't know if you want to know what a muskellunge is. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a pike?
It's a big
Pike. My granddaughter just caught on the St. Lawrence a 38.5-inch pike. It's bigger than she is. But muskellunge used pike for dinner. That's how big muskellunge get. It might be a little exaggeration there. But anyhow, muskies are huge. So if you're ever in one of those big holes floating down in the river and you can see down, and it looks like a log that just went by the boat, it could very well be muskellunge. This fish can be bad news for trout and shad, but there is an angler interest in it. Boyer, who is Andrew Boyer, the supervisor from the town of Highland, and he just loves trout fish, so we'll have to tease him about this. Boyer noted a large number have been caught in the Lackawax and Eddy. That's down where the Roebling Bridge is, so they've been catching muskies in that water right there. Moeller reported that the American eel population is in decline coastwide, but appears to be healthy and holding its own in the Delaware. I don't know how many of us who have been around here a while can remember the years when you used to go eeling in the Delaware River, but you did it with a spear.
Right.
You used to have eel racks up.
Yeah, well, then we'll get to the wares. But they used to come right out of the river and go slithering along the shore, and you're chasing them, and then it's done at night. But that today you'd get arrested because you can't do that. 30 weirs, you were just talking about weirs, or more were operated in the region historically. But efforts have declined dramatically, and there are only 2 primary weirs left, one on the Delaware and one on the Neversink. That's amazing. You just don't see them anymore. Oh, all right. It's an eel rack. You used to be able to drive. I'm glad you asked that. I'm sorry.
I'm really so interested in it.
If you ever gone along the river, since there ain't too many, you probably don't see them, but you see a big V. Open up, and it comes down to a sluice. And the eel fall through into a big wooden trough there. But the problem became that the canoeists from New York, not all of them, but some of them really didn't know what they were doing. And of course, they went right down the middle of the weir, and then they're in the sluice, and it's causing problems. And the guy who owns the thing is screaming and yelling, and they're saying, "I'm going to drown," and it caused a lot of problems. But that's not why the weir thing went down. I think it's because the eel population had dwindled quite a bit, and they had put a thing against moratorium on catching them for a while. Anyhow, they're talking about the economics of the fishing. Boyer asked Moeller if they might consider an additional pool. They have a pool located near Callicoon where cold water reaches its limit to their electro-fishing survey of trout. I got a kid Andy about this is the one. Boyer wonders where the trout population area where they go when the water warms up. Now that can be looked at, that he's such a good fisherman, he wants information out from where they go to. But anyhow, I won't take any more time. You can go to the UDC website, look that up, and it was a very interesting presentation. I didn't know there was sturgeon in here at one time, but that's before my time, way back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Harold. And next is I don't have anything. Everybody actually stole my thunder, except all the things I wrote down that we're going to talk about. But the Supervisors Association, Sullivan County Supervisors Association, sent, and everybody at this table received a copy of the resolution that regarding gambling in the state. And they wanted us to, they were asking each town to do a resolution. I've talked to everybody here, and I think we kind of agree we're going to table it. We're going to give it some thought before we, I'm not so sure that the little town of Delaware, a resolution to support gambling is going to make any difference in Albany. So, other than that, I have nothing else to report. We've talked about the shared service agreement. We talked about John Wallman coming to the next meeting. We talked about the Golden Feather and the Silver Feather.
Golden Feather
Yeah,
was
Silver Feather.
2 years ago.
2 years ago was the Golden. And we've talked about the permission to close Main Street, so I have nothing else. Anybody else have comments?
Well, we do have a historic website up now, CalicoonOnTheDelaware.com.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she did a beautiful job.
Well, I'm gonna be adding a lot more to
Yeah.
it, but it's up, and if anyone has any old photos or any information, you can just email.
Can you
email in
post,
there.
can you post the link and stuff to the Calicoon Creek Park?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
If you post that, I mean, there's on the Facebook page,
Mhm.
I mean, Facebook, there's Living in Calicoon, there's the Calicoon Creek Park. So anything like that you can post to the Calicoon Creek Park, and I can push it back out again, and we can put it out, I'll follow up and put it Living in Calicoon, but that's absolutely, post that, and we'll get people liking it and sharing it and all kinds of stuff.
Well done.
Thank you.
Very
It's
nice.
very
Good job.
Work in progress, though.
Mhm.
Add more to it.
Okay, old business. Does anybody want to move the adoption of the local law decreasing the membership of the planning board?
I'll move on.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new business. The only thing I have is, there's a sewer unit change in Coletown.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's an add, it's an addition, one unit. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about it, but it's no big deal.
Is that John Cavalier?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, now I know.
right across from his house.
He added an office in the building that he bought there and put a bathroom in.
Which one did he
The
buy?
gray apartment building there,
Oh.
right next to the house.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
A resolution to accept the abstract.
Oh, wait, I didn't get, did we get a motion and a second on the sewer unit change?
Oh,
So
you need it?
moved.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought we
Second.
did that. Yeah.
Aye.
And all in favor?
In a hurry?
Okay, resolution to accept the abstract.
I shall make a motion to accept
Okay,
the
Can I get a second? Okay,
Okay.
all those in favor?
Aye. Gotta pay the bills.
Okay, gotta pay the bills. Okay, any public comment?
I have a question for Harold. Now, with that report, with the trout and all this stuff, and the Delaware is this huge, big, it just, oh my God. So Huh, yeah, and the muskies. So what happens with that information then? Do the river towns, I mean, is that part of the wild and scenic, what am I trying to ask? Okay, in terms of, like, the Route 97 corridor and all the river towns, is there some way of everybody coming together and being coordinated, a kind of promotion of that fact that we've got like one of the best trout rivers in the country, and what happens with that information?
argue that. It's
No.
really funny because it's like for a fisherman, I don't know how many anglers there are here. For a fisherman, it's the best kept secret.
Yeah.
And a lot of fishermen
I don't want it out.
don't want to let it out. It's because
Where'd
it
you
really
catch
is.
that?
I mean, I fished in Montana, Idaho, and I fished I fished the big hole.
Yep.
And I want to tell you what, at Delaware, as far as trout, rainbow trout, I mean, you can catch 25, 26-inch trout. I'm not saying every time, but a 20-inch rainbow, you know, you put one of them on a fly rod, and you've got more fun than you
They're
know,
deep.
you won't forget it for a long time.
They're deep.
Really,
the top
and
to
we
the
have
bottom.
them right here.
Tough to catch.
Bigger than the beaver kill and the willow
Yeah.
winglock.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
ask Jim Hank.
And a big river. I mean, you know, this is a river. It's a river. It's not a stream, and you know, it's really a challenge. And I'll tell you, the months of end of May and June, for real anglers, they think this is paradise.
I mean, it just seems like, is there some way of coordinating amongst the towns, the Upper Delaware River Basin, to get that word out? I mean, with a YouTube video, I mean, what you just did now, to have, you know, with Isaac having just taped that, to talk about that, to have fishermen talking about what it's like to fish the Delaware, and have it be on YouTube, and have like the UDC help put that together or something.
this is who
Is
you
there
should
some
really
way of getting that
contact.
information out there?
Go to Lori Rainey at the UDC, because she has so many connections. You know, she's working with that daily, so she has connections. Of course, we do with the Park Service and the Riverkeeper and a whole bunch of different things. And it might be something that even well, they have it on their website. I just said they have it.
Campgrounds, to work with the
Yep.
canoes.
Well, this is a coordinator. It could be a very good thing.
They should add that to their future brochures, you know, that they're gonna print for next year.
They have
In
any
terms of,
number.
like what Tom was saying, I mean, this is, I mean, it's kind of like, it's not exactly agriculture, but what a great way to get people to.
Working on tourism, that's definitely.
Well, it says something about, you don't have trout in polluted places. You don't have, I mean, it says something not only about trout fishing for fishermen, but it says something about families who want to come to a clean, safe place and go canoeing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of tangential issues around that that could be really spiked and
I will mention
promoted.
it to the group that's working on tourism.
Yeah, there's a great. This is an economic factor along the river.
Yeah.
The fishermen coming into the area to fish. It
They've got-
definitely is.
They've got several guide services
Yep.
that
They're working on it.
organize a lot of fishing on the Delaware. And
must
they
be
do the
25 of those.
advertising as well.
You see the guide boats going up, and I mean, they do business.
Sure.
They start in early May, and actually now they're doing it with the bass fishing.
Sullivan County has
Bass
a,
fishing now?
Yeah, you know, Billy,
Sportsman's Dan shop.
he tells me they catch 75 to 100 bass usually on a normal day.
I just never forget the time that I took the kids for the first time. We were sitting under the waterfall at Stone Arch. It was my first encounter with an eel. It came right on over my shoulder. And by the time I stopped screaming, it was long gone. But it was a real surprise to me. I didn't realize.
As I went down the river, it said another tourist.
Sullivan County has a local, I was gonna say, Sullivan County has a local waterfront revitalization project they've been doing now for a year and a half, and they've got a lot of traction, and they're now, you know, they're working on developing, they're about to interview consultants tomorrow night, shortlisted consultants, and they've identified 6 river towns, which would include us, I believe, yeah?
Yes.
That, you know, they're gonna upgrade all the accesses along, or 6. And there will be money that follows that planning process. Like, they're on a track where they're kind of funneling in grants, and they take a step and they get another grant. So
Fantastic.
that could be,
Have they been in
to your
touch with you
point,
guys?
that could,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, as part of that.
The UDC is in touch with that too.
Heather Jackson will be, coordinating some meetings in each town, and I think in October, I believe, we're going to see a meeting here about an access point here.
They put fish into the river, why not eel?
Oh, the eel come from the sea, come from the ocean.
Eels, the
They
life
migrate.
cycle is completely different than like a salmon or a trout where they go up the stream to spawn. Eels go into the ocean to spawn.
Yeah, they go
And
the
that's
other way.
why in August, that's when the eels run, this month and into September. And that's generally when the old eel racks, that's when they put the racks in and harvested the eels. So they're going down now. And if you go out at night in the river with a light, you'll see the eels, they're running downstream. And that's what they're doing, they're all heading to the ocean.
population's gone down, they don't know why it's gone down.
I don't know. There was a talk about that. The DEC was talking about it at one of the meetings that the UDC had, because they're a member and they're there at almost every council meeting. And they had talked about how it diminished, and they don't know whether it was for fishing out on the ocean or whether it was a natural thing that happened. Maybe there was some insect or some biological thing that was happening with them. But as this report said, this fellow said that they're holding their own in this river, which is a good thing. They're still here, But
You know,
What about shad? What's going on with the
Well, the
shad?
shad, that's the other way, it's a migratory, it's coming upstream.
they're coming from the sea out.
But both eels have to go through the pollution and the salt, I don't know how far up the salt.
Well, they're
goes
always
now,
trying
you know.
to control that. That's one of
Yeah,
their
I mean,
concerns.
but the quality of the river down, not here, but down, is always an issue regarding the migratory fish. So, including eels. They're gonna get through it to go into the ocean, and the shad have to get through it to come up here and spawn.
But what's our shad population doing now? I mean, when I first came up here, I remember it was just great fishing.
I don't think they're worried about the shad so much.
Mm-hmm.
Things come and go in cycles, not just the life of the shad, but the interests of fishermen. Maybe not a lot of fishermen are out there like there used to be for shad. It used to be a great big thing,
Right, it was huge.
I mean, you used to go to any of the shops around here and buy shad darts. If you don't know what that is, you find out what a shad dart is, Interesting about the Delaware River, it's no longer a natural stream. It's been dammed up. There's two big dams, and they control what water comes into it, other than the natural rains and the streams flowing in it. So the ecology of this whole river in my lifetime has changed from a warm water fishery. It was mostly smallmouth bass, perch, some walleye in the deeper holes, and of course the eels come up, and then later the shad, they were coming out. But the trout, you found trout out here,
In the brooks.
right in the brooks
The
and the
fact that they're in
streams.
the river now, that's a change, and that's a positive change
Yep.
because of the dams.
Yep. And it's interesting, now the DEC or these people, they bring in the muskellunge. Well, they're gonna eat up the trout and they're gonna eat up the other thing. It's like our deer population. We all love to see the deer, except when they start eating your flowers. And so the DEC decided, well, and they won't admit this, but they're the ones that brought coyotes back. There were no coyotes around here when we were kids. They just didn't exist. And the unfortunate thing about a coyote is that they just tear a deer down, and before it's even on the ground dead, they're eating on it. So, but that's the way things go. I don't control that. But it's interesting to see what's happened to the river. You could cross the Delaware River at Callicoon, and by the time you got to Pennsylvania, I can remember this because I just spoke with a classmate who lived right over there. He says, Harold, it wouldn't go over your knees. You try that now. And that's because they changed it. That's why it's colder. Remember, you want to go swimming sometimes, and then it's really cold, right? You would know that, right? And that's because they're releasing it. And then you get this twisting turmoil between how much do we release? Is it going to hurt the fisheries? What is it going to do about flooding? You got all these issues that pile in, and they're trying to, when you fool with Mother Nature, you got a problem. So they're still working on it. But positive, it's been a positive thing, and it's cleaner. There's no two ways about it. When we were kids, everything was in there. Everything, I'm telling you, everything went in there. They hadn't had any sewer plants, not in Callicoon, not in Narrowsburg, not in any of them. They all,
Jeffersonville, where I grew up.
every little town had their dump right on the river.
Yep.
You know why?
Callicoon had a big one.
Come spring,
Wash out.
oh, Narrowsburg's got it now.
But
And that's the way
Jefferson-
it was. So there's been some wonderful things that have happened.
Cortez figured that out.
Yeah, Cortez. Anyhow, enough from what I'm
Yeah, in
saying.
Jeffersonville, where I grew up, every sewer pipe went in the creek.
That's right.
We had talk about industry. We had Roth's Laundry. They did laundry for every hotel in the county.
Yep.
There was soap suds from Jeffersonville right out to the Delaware.
Yeah,
Had to clean it up somehow.
talk
And-
about
and-
gray water.
Yeah. And
Can I
you
get
talk,
can I get a motion to
I
adjourn?
shall give you a motion.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Yeah, good one.
Are we done with, that was public comment?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I got some.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm sorry, I didn't know we were kind of
Yeah.
going through that, but, listen, I'm gonna make some comments, they're about the passage of the local law 4. And I'm gonna say things, and it's kind of ironic because this meeting has been like a really good meeting. You know, it's kind of ironic. I mean, I think that this meeting, like the discussions about the agriculture with what Tom is doing, and kind of talking the back and forth and about the strength of the river and the value of fishing and tourism, it's been really great. So, but I'm gonna talk about what I didn't think was so great in the last few months, but understand that what I saw today was modeling, like, I thought, you know, better behavior in a sense. Recent passage of local law number 4 did not represent the town of Delaware's finest hour or anything remotely close to it. My professional opinion regarding the proposed amendment, now local law, is well documented and does not bear repeating at this time. I will comment on the process of this amendment. Good quality governance has 3 qualities: openness, transparency, and responsiveness. The town of Delaware, in its development and execution of this amendment, was not open, transparent, nor responsive. This set of amendments propose compressor stations as permitted special uses, significantly weaken noise regulations, significantly weaken river corridor regulations, and will create more work and raise more questions than it answers for the town of Delaware Planning Board and the UDC. All of this ostensibly pursued, as the town has stated on numerous occasions, by the county's requirement, quote unquote, that the town address a fuzzy boundary line at the river corridor, a request that the county states in its 239 letter it never made. And the county, in its 239 response, has pointedly requested that the town's meeting minutes be corrected to reflect that it had not made this request. And the county, in the same 239 response, stated that the fuzzy boundary of a zoning district is in fact permitted by general municipal law. So, all that being said, why did the town embark on this ultimately quite tortuous path? What were the goals? As I have said before to this board, it is important for a community that wishes to live in relative harmony to focus not on positions but on the interests that underlie those positions. My interests are the same as many of you. Preserve the rural character, promote economic growth that includes agriculture and tourism, though it is not necessarily limited to those. Promote economic growth that is integrated with that rural character and maintains our great clean water and forests and clean air and quality of life. And of course, last but not least, protect our private property rights. Those are my interests, and I think those interests are shared by many in this room and many on the board. I am glad the town dropped the compressor station language and removed the less restrictive noise amendment. I am, of course, disappointed that the town is moving forward with the river corridor regulations. To be clear, my efforts to see this corrected are not political. I made the same comments about the river corridor regulations at least a year ago in a planning board meeting, a meeting at which I suggested a clear overlay zone, a meeting at which there was confusion between the planning board and its consultant as to whether an overlay zone was actually proposed. My comments then, my recent comments, and my comments tonight are driven by a desire to promote interests that I think many in this community share. Maintain rural character, take care of the water and air, protect private property rights, and grow economies that are well integrated with our rural character and the wonderful special quality of life it creates and provides for this community. I think quite unfortunately, in these last few months, we have not focused enough on shared interests, but rather on our differing positions. The result is this local law that, based on the county's comments, is not particularly well crafted and may have, quote, adverse intercommunity impacts as stated by the county's Department of Planning and Environmental Management. And there is an issue embedded in this regulation that has received scant attention because there have been so many other issues. Adding multifamily dwellings as a permitted special use in rural RU districts.
Probably gonna go, it's obviously a call, so it's gonna go through a couple cycles.
Should I talk really fast? Not fast enough.
The sire's gonna go through, I think, 3